Hi, and today I want to talk about something that I've been debating for a long time. The reason why I want to talk about the truth to life. The truth to life as I understood it via Jiddu Krishnamurti. And the reason why I had some reservations about doing this is because Jiddu Krishnamurti himself never tells you what the truth to life is. Jiddu Krishnamurti makes a point of questioning everything and investigating through 1,000,000 different ways to try and allow you to have insight to your life yourself. And that is of the utmost importance, because if Jiddu Krishnamurti gave you rules to life, or this is what you're supposed to follow or whatever, then the whole situation would become the same as Jesus or the Prophet Muhammad. Then it becomes a rule, a law, and then Krishnamurti's words or seeing the truth to life would then become a method, would become a religion, would become something other than you finding the truth to life yourself. And Jiddu Krishnamurti didn't want glory, he didn't want a religion, he didn't want anything other than you being able to see the truth to life. And it works. I'm certain that it works, because it worked. I saw the truth to life via Jiddu Krishnamurti with no prior knowledge or spiritual investigation or whatsoever. So first off, I need to issue a spoiler alert, because if you want to find the truth to life yourself, as I did, as Jiddu Krishnamurti intended, don't listen to me. It's probably a better idea not to listen to this. If you've already been listening to Jiddu Krishnamurti for a while and you're sort of familiar with the concepts, but you can't quite see the truth for yourself in your life, maybe you can relate to what I'm saying and see the truth to your life yourself. Or you listen to me and think I'm full of shit, which is fine. All I know is I was in a very, very miserable state of mind. I was a very unhappy little camper. I was definitely more suicidal than anything else. Everything I believed in, everything I worked for, everything I tried to achieve failed pretty miserably. And all the ideas that I had through my life experience was proven to me that I was barking up the wrong tree, evidently. And now normally, if you hear someone say something like that, I was very miserable, I was in a very bad state, but it turned out that this terrible, bad, miserable state was the perfect place for me to actually listen and understand what Jiddu Krishnamurti was saying, because first of all, my ego was pretty much beaten down to a pulp. The way that I'd been treated by someone that I'd lived with for a decade made me feel as if I was absolutely worthless, which again sounds really bad but was beneficial. So that's one of the main reasons that I never was actually contentious or angry or upset with the treatment that my husband made me endure, because it ended up helping me in understanding what Krishnamurti said. The thing about my relationship was that I believed in the goodness in my husband. I thought, through shared trauma, I thought that we were similar. And I assumed that if he'd been treated like that as a child, as I did, then there's no way he would do that to another person as an adult or as a grown-up. But I was very wrong. And I had this, or my ego back then, so my ego thought it knew better than anybody else. It thought it was right. It thought that it could see the goodness in human beings. It thought that it could detect lies. It thought that it was living in the reality of things. And my image that I had, or my ego, held a very solid image of my husband. And that was that he was kind and he was nice and he wouldn't lie to me, and etc., etc. So in real life, when my husband did lie to me, usually I could sort of tell that he was lying. And I go, well, that doesn't really sound very reasonable. But because I wanted to believe in my husband, I wanted to believe that we could make this work. I wanted to believe that he is telling the truth. Even though I could tell he wasn't telling the truth, I wanted to believe in the image of him. Because as soon as I go, hang on, you're lying, that image that I held of him would have crumbled. And that would have been a lot more convenient if I'd done that 10 years ago. But my hopes and my dreams were all attached to him being a decent human being. And as soon as he's not, all my ideas and all my images crumble, which they did. They did eventually, which was even worse, because then I'd already invested so much time and energy into this imaginary world that my future, my family, my relationship, my happiness, all was attached to this one human being. And when I did eventually evidently find out that he was manipulating me, that he was lying to me, my imaginary world that I had of him, or that I had full stop, like it wasn't just him, it was me and him, our relationship, our family, my imaginary children, my whatever it may have been. And all of that collapsed, which was, I obviously was pretty attached to that idea. Well, I must have been very attached to that idea, because I probably have been shaping and forming it all my life. And the reason why, like with any belief, with any idea, with any belief, our ego forms the belief, or we're handed down the belief or the idea. And then, for instance, with my husband, I believed he is like me. He shared trauma, mistook it for being similar in personality. But so everything that he did that sort of fit my idea or my image of him, that was nice, that was kind, whatever, that would confirm my belief. And anything that he would do that would actually show me that the image that I had of him was not the right, or that it's not true, that it's a lie, that it's a facade. Every evidence I would have had against him, I would have dismissed, or I wouldn't have trusted it, or even if I probably would have seen it like black on white, I still would have believed his story of however he wants to fit it into his narrative, or the narrative that he wanted me to have of him. Luckily, not only did I find out that he manipulated me, he then turned around and punished me for breaking up with him, because, well, obvious reasons, apparently. But due to this experience or due to him treating me like shit, there was no doubt left in my mind that I have recognized or uncovered the truth. So as soon as I could see the truth, as soon as I saw the reality of things, as soon as I saw what is, as I should have done a long time ago, the image crumbled, the idea crumbled, the facade was evident. You could see the real human being, and you could see the acting that he would do, or the pretending, or the idea that he's trying to convey. So I more or less found out in my life, this is prior to finding Krishnamurti, that I thought I was very, very sure that the life that I was living right. I thought I had it right. I thought I knew what was going on. I thought that I understood my relationship. I understood the nature of what was going on. I thought that this is reality and there is no alternative, because I thought I could see through things or whatever. And when this reality of mine, this imaginary reality of mine, actually crumbled, I could realize, I could understand that it felt real. It felt like I was doing the right thing based on my ego. If anybody would have told me you're living a life of illusion, there's no way I would have believed it. I would have thought they're crazy. But due to the revelation of that my husband was lying to me the whole time, so it was an imaginary idea. It was just sort of like everything crumbled, and I never even started to rebuild my imaginary world. But it was a really strange sort of moment in time. I called it an existential crisis at the time, or a nervous breakdown, or whatever. And that is exactly when I found Krishnamurti, luckily, because I was pretty comfortable with the fact that I was living a world of illusion. I didn't think it was I thought it was like only me, like I was the only one that sort of lived a world of illusion and found out that that's not real life. When I did find Jiddu Krishnamurti, a lot of the concepts that he speaks of were already quite familiar with me through underground hip-hop. This doesn't sound very reasonable, but Jiddu Krishnamurti speaks of the truth, universal truth, nothing but the truth. So you will find the truth anywhere. I always say predominantly underground if it's not mainstream popular culture. Most people are actively looking for the truth. Nobody knows that this is all interconnected until they see the truth and nothing but the truth. But once you understand what Krishnamurti is saying, you'll see that in every sort of facet, like art, skateboarding, hip-hop, photography, it could be anything. Literature, of course. There's so much truth to be found. And that's why I'm so sure that everybody in this world is looking for truth, because people do find facets of the truth. If one looked at their life and seriously looked for the truth, one would find it. But nowadays we're so distracted and so inundated by messages to consume and how we're supposed to be and how we're supposed to act, that we're not, and we're also sort of made dependent on the system, dependent on whatever, that we don't understand that we as human beings, we can be independent, free human beings, free from any system, any belief, any idea. And if we knew that, which is probably why I'm trying to say this, if we knew that, we would find it for ourselves. And that's why I quite like the fact that I found some of the truth in underground hip-hop. And a lot of the concepts were quite familiar with me, you know, not to imitate other people, be independent, be your own person, don't try and abide by the system, and don't follow the silly rules that society is giving us, or the traditions, or anyway. Basically, what Jiddu Krishnamurti is telling you, or telling us, is telling the world, is telling humanity, is that we are living in a life of illusion. And that life of illusion is built up of all our ideas, all our beliefs, all our conditioning. And I always use a simile of a layer cake. If you have a layer cake with cream on top, the bottom is a sponge, and the sponge, that is us as a human being. And as we grow up, so when we're born, we're a sponge. And we enjoy life. We don't have any ideas, we don't have any ideologies, we don't follow any traditions, culture, as very, very young children. But slowly the family ideologies, so the ideas that our parents have, they get put on that layer cake. And then our culture, our religion, our personal beliefs, our personal opinions, our personal wants and whatever. And all these add to the layers of the layer cake. And what we want is just the sponge, without the confusion of ideology and beliefs and ego and what we're supposed to be and how we're supposed to act. If we could just see life as it is, without any opinions, without any bias, without any prejudice, that's what we want. And that's what Jiddu Krishnamurti is talking about. It's not something elevating or transforming to a higher state. It's not, well, sort of, yes, but it's more like reverting back to the happiness we had when we were children. Because it's just this confusion of ideologies, beliefs, and conditioning. And this confusion is added on top of our base state, our peaceful, harmonious, silent mind. And as soon as we understand the nature of our beliefs and our ideas, and we understand why we first acquired them, why we first produced them, why we first needed them, or the ego as well. As soon as we look into our own life, so this, I can't help you with that. When you look into your own life and you say, like, let's say for instance, because it's a very relevant topic at the moment, say I'm racist. We'll commonly find that if I'm racist, so that means I hold an ideology, a malevolent ideology that judges people based on their skin color or ethnicity, whatever. Religion as well, it's the same. Commonly, you will find that the parents will hold that belief, right? So for whatever reason, it could be the society holds that belief, it could be propaganda, it could be Russian robots on Facebook, it could be anything. Somehow we got this idea. Quite commonly people like this idea because they themselves are currently oppressed. And when I feel oppressed, I feel frustrated. And instead of dealing with my oppression, it is easier to oppress another to make myself feel better. which is the cycle that Hitler in Germany, I think, should have been the best and last example. Should have been the last example of this working, but unfortunately this works all over the world, everywhere and always, because we are always oppressed. We're always oppressed by our system. So we're always frustrated. We're always unhappy. And instead of dealing with this unhappiness and frustration, it is easier to punish another person, which in turn makes us feel even more unhappy and even more depressed. But usually we double down on our beliefs and then we can't step away from the fact. But the simple fact of the matter is, if I'm a human being and I approach another human being, how can an idea about a human being I haven't even met yet, that judges the person, that discriminates the person, that it's just an arbitrary belief that I hold in my head. However, because my ego holds this belief in its head, it will desperately try and confirm its belief. So if I meet someone and I don't talk to them, then I probably go, well, lucky I didn't talk to them because they looked dangerous or whatever. But the mere fact is that in your human life, you just limited yourself. You just limited yourself from meeting another human person. You don't know what you could have learned from that person. Every human being I meet teaches me something phenomenal that I never would have known if I wouldn't have given that human the chance. And not only that, you are inflicting pain on someone who's being judged based on an arbitrary reason, just for the color of their skin. If you look at children, before the ideology, before the conditioning, before anything, if you put them in a room with all different races, they may comment, maybe they will comment on this color of the skin, but if you're a nice human being and I want to play with you, I'm not going to care what the color of your skin is. It's all about how we are as human beings. And unfortunately, our system is hell-bent on this division, on this categorization, and on winning, on trying to be better and trying to feel superior to other people. And the reason why we're so attached to our ideas and our beliefs is because we usually picked them ourselves, or we inherited them from our parents. Another important thing that I needed to understand, which was surprisingly easy in the state that I was in at the time, was you can't have any attachment. Now, at the time I didn't have any attachments because I pretty much had been abandoned by everybody. So if you do have an attachment to your family, which is a common thing, there's a big difference between attachment and love. If I love someone unconditionally and I love them for the human being that they are, then being attached to them actually would inhibit their growth, the direction that they want to grow into, the flower that they are going to become. Because if I try and guide them, if I try and push them in a certain direction, I'm not actually letting the flower become the flower that it wants. I'm trying to turn the flower into mini-me. I'm trying to turn the flower into the idea that I have of this person. And that's a very small distinction in words, but it's a huge, huge difference in life. If I can love someone, be it a child, be it a partner, be it a husband, be it a wife, if I truly, truly love them, then I will allow them to go their own path, make their own mistakes, if I go out and I make a mistake, and I can make that mistake and grow from there, that lesson is so much more valuable than if someone is giving you rules and guidelines. So, for instance, with my husband, okay, like, I had a miserable time. I wish I hadn't done it. Not really, because I am very grateful for my experience, because if someone had told me, hey, this is a really bad idea, like, I don't think you should marry this guy, I would have maybe agreed, not agreed, whatever. If I hadn't made this experience for myself in my life, how could I have learned this valuable lesson? Like, life isn't pretty. Like, you fall on your face, like, you make mistakes. Well, I don't call them mistakes anymore, because you don't make mistakes. That's in the eye of the system, in the eye of an idea. We just try, and if it didn't work out, we'll try again differently next time. And as soon as we can see our life like this, not by guidelines and not by rules and not by a system, but by a flow, a evolving, a growing, a living human being, because that's what we are. Nobody's perfect. Like, perfection doesn't exist. It took me a very long time to find that out, but perfection doesn't exist. My biggest attachment definitely would have been with my husband, but that was probably, it wasn't an abusive relationship, because so I was attached by default and in a bad way, but luckily that broke up. My family pretty much broke up with me, and the last and most important attachment would have been the ego. And like, my biggest problem was that I would constantly overthink. From a very young age, it was my goal to outthink people and be smarter than everybody else. And that probably started me on this descent of overthinking and overanalyzing. I was desperately depressed. I was super anxious, and increasingly so. Like, it got worse and worse and worse as I was getting older, as my relationship was deteriorating, as my life was deteriorating. In a conventional sense, my life deteriorated, but luckily the break brought some new growth. I glorified the way that I thought. I thought I could outsmart most things or whatever, which is all the ego. That's all ego. Like, a human being would never think, there's no comparison, no comparison, no measurement in real life. That's all a system. And when Krishnamurti started speaking about that thinking is a material process, with a background in science, I understood straight away what he meant, because it literally is a material process. When I think, synapses fire in my brain, and the chemical reaction that ensues. Most chemical reactions entail a loss of energy, and in our brain, it is an evident, scientifically, you can prove this, that you lose energy when you think. So finding out that is something that is possible, that got me hooked on Krishnamurti straight away. I think it was one of the first things. And initially, I remember that, I think for a few days, as far as I know, I would discipline myself not to think. And it was not until I understood that. So even if I'm disciplining myself not to think, thoughts will pop up, and then I go, don't think. So stop thinking. And it sort of worked. and it definitely improved my life. So I think that was probably all the evidence that I needed to know that Jiddu Krishnamurti is for real, because it sort of worked and it made me feel a lot better. And once I started to get used to this and I'd slow down, so my pace of life sort of slowed down, because before it was just racing thoughts non-stop. I sort of noticed that all the thoughts that I'd had would be the ego being a clever dick. So the ego would go, oh no, but blah, 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 you know, but he did this and this, and he said this and this, but I saw this. So it's always the ego. And then I delved into the matter of ego death. And as soon as I understood ego death, that's when everything changed. So all this, that was the most important thing for me. Understanding that my ego has been a stressful entity, not a helpful entity. That all the drama, all the depression, all the anxiety, all of that was all linked to my ego. And with the ego death, like, to me, it's sort of funny that people think it's such an absurd idea and they dismiss the idea straight away. But your ego is just an idea. We're attached to this idea because we've lived with our ego for most of our life. But it is just an idea. And our ego makes us feel special and makes us feel like we are the one in a million. We are extraordinary. And we like that because that's the whole essence of the ego. Every ego thinks that way. Every ego in this world thinks it is right. Every ego in this world thinks it is extra special and one in a million. But the recent events in my life showed me that despite what my ego thought it was doing right, and how my ego thought it was going to become invincible, life showed me that my ego was full of shit. My ego was completely wrong. My ego thought that it knew my husband, and it really didn't. The human being below the ego, right? If I would have just looked at the human being would have looked at the evidence, and it wouldn't have believed all these fantastic stories. It wouldn't have believed in this imaginary world that we all add on top, like we add that layer on top of the layer cake. If I looked at the evidence, it would have been pretty obvious. So all I did was think, okay, I'm a human being that's alive right now on this point of time, in this world, in this universe, in this galaxy, whatever. It's not only the idea of conception, not only the nature of how we are made. I was literally told by my parents that I was an accident. I wasn't planned. I wasn't supposed to be alive. And the fact alone that my parents literally didn't want me and made that pretty clear throughout my life, that would have helped me as well. At that point, I just went, so what? My ego thinks it's all that and it's something extra special. But the evident fact is that I am an accident. I'm not supposed to be here. I'm very lucky to be alive. So maybe me being alive is more like a dandelion. So a dandelion is categorized as a weed, right? So people don't like dandelions. People don't want them in their lawn. They just turn up. They find a bit of dirt and then they're alive. They can thrive. They can be. They can enjoy their moment in the sun. And maybe I am just a weed. I am nothing. And maybe there is no point to me being alive. Maybe I should just be grateful for breathing, for enjoying this life, for actually being here. I found a bit of dirt. It doesn't matter how little we have. It doesn't matter that it's in a shitty spot, like in between cracks of the concrete or next to a busy road where no one's ever gonna enjoy the beauty of this dandelion. No one's ever gonna stop to look at the dandelion. But why would the dandelion care? All the dandelion needs to do is be alive. It needs to flower. It needs to enjoy the sun. And maybe that's all I am. I'm just a bit of stardust that miraculously has turned into a human being through all these life events and these conditions and these terrible things and near-death experiences and whatever. It doesn't make any difference. As long as I'm alive now and I can let go of all my ideas and my hopes and dreams and what I'm supposed to be and supposed to become. What use is it to a dandelion if it sees a rose on the other side of the garden and goes, oh, that rose is way prettier than me? What are you going to do about it? You're never going to turn into a rose. Why would you compare a rose to a dandelion anyway? And there's no comparison. There's no measurement in life. There's only life. And if the dandelion had never been compared to the rose, had never even thought of being compared to a rose, had never tried to become a rose, then the dandelion would be happy. Either way, the dandelion is a dandelion. We can either believe in an imaginary world, we can either delve into these ideas of what we should become and how we should act and believe other people's stories of us or not, whatever. The mere fact that I am nothing, I'm just a dandelion, I'm just alive and I can breathe, I can enjoy my life as it is. There's no needing to become better. I don't need any material things, like what for? They're just things that we add to soothe the ego, to soothe our unhappiness, or to soothe this search that we don't know where to start to look. As soon as we can accept that we're nothing special, we're just living, breathing human beings. And if the sponge of the layer cake is alive, then all the layers on top, everything, I'm pretty sure this is a Krishnamurti quote, everything that has been put on top of that layer cake, we did it ourselves. We did that ourselves, right? This is not a blaming thing. We acquired all these ideas, these beliefs, these ideologies, these family conditioning, whatever. We've acquired them so we can undo them. And as soon as you undo all of that and you can just let go of all the dreams, hopes, whatever, and all the bullshit that our ego feeds us, as soon as you can let go, the salvation, the release, the joy is absolutely immeasurable. I can't describe it, and I'm going to do my best to not. as soon as we can see that we are nothing, and then as soon as you can see that in your life you are nothing, you're alive and breathing, and that's all that counts, and then you'll no longer have any more questions. Then everything's fine, and you'll settle into your natural state of being a human. And the natural state of being human is filled with joy, is filled with love. And you know, now every day I wake up, I do what I have to do, I do my work, and as soon as I'm done with work, I go out and I experience my world. I enjoy my life. I try and make the most out. No, that's actually not, that would be another rule, but it's no longer a life of needing to do something, needing to fulfill something, needing to fulfill expectations or whatever. I don't go out with a motive. I don't go out to accomplish anything. And that sounds like it's a small little thing, but it's huge. As soon as I go out and I have no expectations, everything is fun. Everything is beneficial. Everything. And even if you don't believe me, just the mere fact that if I can go outside and I can be completely relaxed and I don't need anything out of life, it seems fairly obvious that the reception that I get from people is overwhelmingly positive, because if I'm a positive person, it's infectious. Like, people want to be a part of your positivity. No one likes drama. Well, psychopaths love drama, but human beings, we love life. We human beings, we love life. And if it doesn't feel that way to you right now, don't give up. Keep trying to understand what Jiddu Krishnamurti is saying to you, because you can tell what Krishnamurti is saying is the truth. And it's not magic, it's not divine, it's not out of this world. It is your human life. And never, ever, ever have the idea that you can't get there, because every human being can get there. Every empathic human being 100% can get there. It's not that complicated. I'm not quite sure why it's not in every single classroom in school yet, but you can get there. And the first thing you need to do is drop the idea that you can't, because as soon as you do that, then you limit yourself, then it's not going to work. Just relax and listen to what Jiddu Krishnamurti is saying and be open, and that's it. That's all. In case you have any questions, please feel free to ask. And it won't be long, and then you'll recognize that being a dandelion, like, it doesn't matter if there's a million dandelions in the field. It doesn't matter that there are other dandelions that look yellower or whatever. There's no measuring, there's no comparing in life. It is what it is. And being a dandelion, not having a point, is pretty phenomenal. And as soon as you can see that truth for yourself in your very own life, then you can enjoy your moment in the sun for the rest of your life as well. So, thank you very much for listening, and talk to you soon.